DJ Durkin is staying at Auburn. He is now the second highest paid coordinator in all of college football at $2.5 million per year. Yeah, what's interesting when you look at the top paid assistants. So Knowles at Penn State is Jim Knowles is now first. What was it? 3.1 a year.
3.1. Yeah.
Most of them are defensive coordinators, though. It's mostly it's like Baker at LSU.
And Baker broke the bank last year.
Yeah,
Baker. Blake Baker goes from Missouri to LSU, gets 2.5 to fix that defense, and it was like a big deal. And then it just goes up with Knowles with 3.1, and then DJ Durkin. By the way, what's fantastic for defensive coaches or defensive coordinators? You relish, you love. It's the most amazing thing when a big-time job like Ohio State loses their guy, because everybody getting a raise. Like,
yes,
come on, come talk to your boy. Oh, I'm talking Ohio State. Like, Coach Freeze talking to Ohio State. Hey, company talking to Ohio State. How much?
Who's the guy in Atlanta that's the agent for all the head coaches? Is it Jimmy Sexton? Is that his name? Sexton, that's the agent. Yeah, that guy's got it made when other coaches leave and change and things like that. It's like
it's the best.
My guy getting calls.
It's the best way to do it. Like, and you could be doing the calls for so many guys at one time. Like, which is amazing. But I was actually talking to Freeze. I was talking to him today about it, and I was just like, man, like, but I don't think you have I don't think you get a piece, because until that job's filled, there's still a chance. There's still a chance someone can leave and someone can go. But I think DJ Durkin, I think the most impressive thing about him is, like, he's another one of those guys. Again, I'm going to say this so much, and people are going to get annoyed probably, but like, your defense takes on your personality, and he is energetic. He looks you in the eye. Like, he brings juice. Every walkthrough you go through with him, like, it's energy. It's detailed, detail oriented. It's energy. It's focused. Like, it's locked in. And Auburn's defense has not been the problem in Hugh Freeze's first 2 years. Like, the offense has been really bad, which is surprising, because Hugh's always found a way, it seems like, to have great quarterback play wherever he's been, but they've struggled on the offensive side of the football. But the defense has been really, really good. And when the offense gets better, it helps your defense even more. So I think it was important for them to keep their guy, to keep the guy that's been successful so far in the league. So you got to pony up, especially when Ohio State and big schools like that come calling.
Speaking of big schools, like, if you look where Durkin has coached in his, throughout his career, at Florida, DC, Michigan, DC, head coach at Maryland for a little bit,
A&M,
Ole Miss a little bit, A&M, DC. Like, so he's been through some humongous programs. By the way, started in 01 as a GA at Bowling Green. Do you remember who the head coach was then at Bowling Green?
In 2001?
2001, 2002-ish. Pretty famous coach who's won a national championship.
Who?
Went to Utah, then went to Florida, then went.
Urban Meyer.
Urban Meyer was at Bowling Green. Same. That's right. Like about 15 minutes from where I went to college. So, knew that very much there. And all kinds of actually coaches have come from that. Dan Mullen was there at that time. So a lot of different coaches have come from there. So speaking of Auburn, they are next on our list of teams that we are looking at, to sort of looking ahead to kind of a state of the program, look ahead to 2025. Auburn now, by the way, had 8 straight winning seasons with Gus. Started off losing the BCS championship, getting all the way to the BCS championship, losing, but still had 8 straight winning seasons, and since have had 4 straight losing seasons, 2 with Harsin and then 2 with Hugh Freeze currently. They haven't won more than 3 games in the SEC since 2020. And then, interestingly enough, like, I always—
That's crazy, man. That's crazy. That's nuts just to think about.
Another thing I always associate with Auburn is NFL level talent. But how many can you, like, top 100, sort of top 3 round picks in the last 4 drafts they've had? It's not a large number.
Do they have a corner?
4. It's 4 guys in the last 4 years that have been top 100 picks. So one of McCreary that went to, I think, Tennessee. Anthony Schwartz, the speed guy that went to the Browns in the 3rd round.
Yeah.
And then Derek Hall off the edge and Tank Bigsby at running back. Those 4, that's it. They haven't had a first-round pick since 2020 when they had 2 with Derek Brown and Igbanana something or other. I can't butcher his last name.
No, I think you said that right, actually. So no first-round pick since 2020.
No.
Wow.
So they went to the portal heavy this year, and Davey, if you don't really like your quarterback room, or it's kind of what can you do?
Just bring in 30 guys.
Just completely flip it upside down. So no more anyone that was there, and now you've got Jackson Arnold. You even got Ashton Daniels from Stanford. You've got the 5-star recruit and Deuce Knight. You got another kid that was a Bailey kid that was a transfer to, I think, from South Carolina maybe. So their quarterback room is completely different. So the portal is very much, they were very active in the portal, didn't really lose much. A couple guys that played significant, over a few hundred snaps.
Why is that
outside
important?
That mainly in.
Why is that important? That's important because when Hugh Freeze has his trigger man, it's a good offense. Like, he knows how to use numbers. He knows how to use pace. Like, Hugh Freeze does a really good job with offensive football, and he feels the game. He knows the game. And so, like, I think he knows, man, I just need my guy. And if I got 4 or 5 or 6 cracks at this, one of these guys are going to come to fruition. And I think Jackson Arnold's probably the big name because he started for Oklahoma. And
right.
I don't know how to grade him because offensive line for Oklahoma was terrible. It was awful. The wide receiver position was hurt and banged up, so it was awful. So he's a great runner, which fits in Hugh Freeze's system. Like, he's really good with mobile guys. So that's a big time plus. And he was a highly rated kid that had a lot of arm talent. But I think it's smart, man. I think it's smart to bring in a bunch of guys. Here's what will happen. Like, a lot of times, some of these guys that you bring in, especially probably the high school kid more than anything, like, if you get to spring, I'm not the guy, you jump in the portal and you leave, which is what we do now. So, like, whoever doesn't win the job, and that's why these coaches have gotten smarter. And when we get close to the season, we'll talk about this. Like, oh, who's the starting QB? Don't know, guys. It's still really tight. Like, we're deciding between a few guys, but it's nip and tuck, man. They've had some good moments. Bougie. Like, they know who their guy is. They just don't want to say it because if they say it now, if that guy gets hurt game 1, game 2, I'm screwed because it might be really the 3rd string guy because the second guy is gone and it stinks. So if Hugh gets his trigger guy, he knows with the defense the way they've played, now retaining Durkin. Another thing, Cam Coleman's a stud. Like, I've seen enough of Cam Coleman. Like, I didn't know if he'd stay there. I didn't know if he'd jump in the portal because he might want to go with his big frame, freaky athletic ability and go look really good. By the way, Eric Singleton is a huge get in the portal for Auburn.
That was where I was heading next.
Dude, Hugh Freeze loves those gadget guys. He loves that gadget system. You can put guys in motion. You can do all kinds of fun things that are extensions of the run game, easy passes, easy completions. Eric Singleton, who just came from Georgia Tech in Buster Faulkner's system, was elite. Really good. You can hand it to him. He can run it. He can catch it short, make guys miss on the perimeter screen games. He's a dependable receiver, too. I like this kid. I like this kid a lot. I think his production will soar, but you put him with Cam. Like, you've got the deep guy, the deep threat, the big body with the little body and the over the middle and the gadget guy, man. Like, this offense, if they get their trigger man fixed, like, it can do this, which means their win total should do that.
And the other thing from the portal, they got tackle from USC, who a 20-game starter, Mason Murphy, and then a 2-year starter from Virginia Tech and Xavier Chaplin. So in addition to what they already had coming back, you'll have a very experienced offensive line. Now, experience doesn't always equal better play, but it's better to be experienced and have depth than it is to not be experienced and have little depth. So, with what they got coming back, it should sort of up the game a little bit on their offensive line.
And here's what I would argue, Brent, which I don't like this. Let me be very clear. I also know I know more what you are when I go in the transfer portal. Like, I'm not guessing. I'm not projecting. I'm not saying, how does he handle his time in college and schoolwork and all this stuff? How does he handle going against grown men? I've seen it.
Yep.
I watched it for 2 years at Virginia Tech. I know exactly I know what your deficiencies are. I know what you're really good at. And I know you'll fit in my system really well. So I think that's why the portal becomes more and more popular for all these guys, because people get to see what they've already become. They see more of the finished product than a guess, which can be in high school.
Now, the interesting part about their team in this offseason for them is given the change of Saban to DeBoer at Alabama, they went heavy in recruiting. Now, Alabama actually, I think, was 3rd or 4th in terms of overall class rank, but Auburn's was 9th and 6th in the SEC. But out of the top 40 recruits in Alabama, which all were kind of D1, Power 4, G5 types, they got 11. Alabama only got 2. And they got 8 of the top 16 in the state. So from a recruiting perspective, and they obviously got 5-star QB Deuce Knight out of Mississippi. And then the 5-star.
By the way, is that not a great name?
Yes, Deuce Knight. That's a QB. Like, I agree. That's a phenomenal.
Grow up. I want to be Deuce Knight. I'm going to change my name to Deuce Pollack.
I mean,
it's fantastic. Deuce Knight. It sounds like a stud. I don't know much about the guy, except for I know he's
sounds
really
like a good player.
Huh?
It sounds like a good player, right?
Well, I mean, when we were naming Nicholas, so when we named my son, I was like, it's got to be a good touchdown name. Like, if you hear it over the loudspeaker, Nick Pollack, like, it's a slam dunk. Like, I liked it. Lindsay had some other names, and then for our daughter, I'm like, it's got to be a over the speaker intercom, like at a basketball game, so and so for 3. And my wife wanted to go with Lindley for Leah, like Lindley Pollack for 3. Ugh. Like, no, babe, I don't like that. So we went Leah Pollack for 3. Like, just makes more sense.
That's pretty good.
So,
that's pretty good. I actually, the only thing I actually thought about, I mean, first names, not so much. We went middle names. And my thought was, like, if you yell it, like, you're really mad, you're yelling at him.
Cameron Jace.
Chase. Like, how easy is that? And like, when you yell it, does it sound, that was, but no, that's pretty good.
So it's Cameron Jace, Cameron Chase, and Carson Jace.
Yes.
Yeah, it's always that part's confused. I don't have Cameron and Carson confused, because if y'all saw them, they are 2 different human beings, 2 different body types, 2 different personalities. Everything about them are different, but the middle names sound very similar.
So recruiting, though, but dominating the state of Auburn, and that's something that obviously with Nick Saban there that didn't necessarily happen, and now that's a possibility to where now, granted, Alabama went and got sort of national. And did well from their own class perspective, but I think that helps in terms of perception and things. Obviously, now it's got to translate to the field. So we've hit a couple of the questions already. So do they have the right sort of coach QB combo finally? And I think maybe, I mean, we'll get to find out pretty early. By the way, when we
I'll say this
schedule here in a second.
I don't know the answer to that question yet.
Yeah.
But I do know that they're going to be better around the QB than they have been, which to me makes a lot of sense. The system is more in place. The talent is upgraded. I'm 100% certain the talent is upgraded. Now, they're youthful. Like, they're going to be younger than they were a year ago. A lot of young guys on the roster, a lot of guys that we don't know what to expect. But I think the QB position has a lot more upside than the QB position you had last year. And if the QB position hits, like, this is a team that becomes, here's what sucks about the SEC. It becomes another team that can beat you, because they got guys, on the field that are really, really good. They find their trigger man, and to go with Coleman, to go with Singleton, and some of the weapons in that offense that can change in a stop of a dime. That's another thing I love about Hugh Freeze. Like, I've seen Hugh Freeze go breakneck tempo, like breakneck as fast as you possibly can. But I've also seen Hugh Freeze. I absolutely love it. I actually sat down a couple years ago and met with him and asked him how he did it, so I could incorporate some of that stuff into high school football and change tempos the way he does. Because he'll basically go red light, and where he did it with Liberty, where they would take the play clock down to 10, shift to it with it down to 2 or 3, and then bam, you're running a play. So eating up time, so he can speed it up, he can slow it down. So Auburn's one of those teams that could be interesting and could come out of nowhere.
The ceiling argument with the QB, I think, is the best one because there was a ceiling previously. And if you get somebody where you raise that ceiling a little bit, you raise the potential that, hey, I can find lightning in a bottle and maybe be a 9-10 win type team. Second question, we kind of you touched on it a little bit player-wise, but do we see what we saw from Cam Coleman the last 3 games, which in the last 3 games, 22 catches on 25 targets, over 300 yards and 6 touchdowns, like was a dominant force. Like he has one of the best players in college football level talent. And if you see that on a week-to-week basis, adding Singleton as somebody who takes defense's eyes, now you're getting way more interesting on offense.
Yeah, Cam Coleman, it'll be interesting to talk about, but I think Coleman and Singleton have a chance to be one of the better receiver duos easily in the SEC, but maybe in the country. I mean, if I'm thinking guys off the top of my head, like whoever plays with Jeremiah Smith, whoever plays with Ibuka, or that wasn't Ryan Williams. Whoever plays with Ryan Williams, like there's probably going to be some of those guys that emerge, but those two together will work really well. I think about, let's see, Antonio Williams from Clemson, and that they've got Wesco. They've got a squad there that like probably is one of the deeper squads, duos, trios in America. But I think Auburn's definitely got an elite, 1-2 punch at receiver that most teams wish they had.
Now, here's the interesting part for them is the schedule, obviously, with all these SEC teams doesn't change. But opening game at Baylor, who, like, very frisky Big 12 team, had a
finished hot season last year. Finished on really fire last year.
A lot of momentum, and you got to go play them at their place in August in Texas. It's hot everywhere, but it's maybe even a different level of hot there. And then you get Oklahoma early. So you get Jackson Arnold has to go to Oklahoma in week 4 and see John Mateer in the Sooners and see his former team. But they get Georgia, Missouri, and Alabama at home. And specifically Georgia at their place has been like 2 years ago. They had them till the very end. Like that. I feel like
Auburn hasn't beaten Georgia in like 100 years now.
It's been a while. Yes.
How long has it been?
Is it maybe 6 or 7? It's since 2017, I think, when they beat them at Auburn, and then Georgia turned around and beat them in the SEC championship game.
Yeah,
that was the last time. And then the sneaky game for them on their schedule.
That schedule looks good to me, though.
There is one really sneaky game because they got to go to Vanderbilt and see Diego Pavia, who's beat them 2 years in a row.
Pavia's
once at New Mexico State and then once last year. So could be 3 in a row for Pavia against Auburn. All right, so that leads to the ultimate question. Do you see this as a winning record team for the first time in which would be 5 seasons?
Yes, 100%. Yes, I'm down with saying that because Mercer the guaranteed wins to me.
You got 3 of them. You got 3 guarantees. Ball State, South Alabama, Mercer.
Ball State, South Alabama, Mercer. I think they beat Baylor. They're going to beat 2 of Missouri, Arkansas, Kentucky, A&M, Oklahoma. Yeah. I think they're getting well over a winning record this year.
Okay.
Like,
because I think that's the first step for them.
I'm gonna give them 8 wins. Like I'm gonna give them several over what they've been the last couple of years. They didn't even go to the bowl the last 2 years, right? Like that's
4 straight losing seasons.
Yeah, that's not good. So I think they're you can't keep Auburn down for that long, can you? I mean, there's too much tradition. The home field advantage is insane. I mean, that's one of the most fun places to play. Speaking of, by the way, you mentioned at Baylor. Have you ever seen the Baylor run out, Brent? Like,
I thought you were going to say the stadium, but I've not seen the run out. No.
No. So they basically run out onto the field, get to the sidelines, and their whole student section runs through the field afterwards. Like sprints through the field, runs all the way through, and then runs into the student section and fills in. So they all get to run the field. They all storm the field. Like, I don't know if they get fined for that. They shouldn't, because it's obviously not, they're not getting fined. But if you do nowadays, you get fined. But it's one of the cooler like entrances and unique things in all of college football. But yeah, I'm buying Auburn this year. I think they finally get that quarterback situation. I'm betting on Hugh Freeze to get that thing, settled in. And I think the schedule looks good. And yes, Vanderbilt's, tough. But having Kentucky and Arkansas and Missouri and OU and A&M, I'm not sure that they're getting the brunt of the SEC teams probably that you want to face. But, whenever they face Alabama and they're at home, like,
yes, they had them beat 2 years ago. 4th and 30.
I don't even know what
31.
It is. I don't know how to quantify it. I don't know how to. I don't understand it. There's so many times that I've covered this game. I'm like, this game's going to be an ace whooping. Like, there's no way they keep it close. But Auburn always plays Alabama at home tough, and it's mind blowing, but it's a real thing that you've seen over the years. So I look for the War Eagle bounce back, homie.
I do think they take a step forward, and what is that? I think you're right around 8. Like, I think that's a good number.